Ask our elders and our council members to come up, but also we want to invite some of our original council members, and I know Brent Dothard, Carol Miner, I want you guys to come. We want to invite some of the original council members and elders that helped originate by faith the decision to build this church. And so I've invited them to come. So not all of you rush down to the front. But if you guys would come, Carol, if you would come at this time, Brent. And so we have something very, very special for you. But while they're standing and gathering around before we do the mortgage burning, and I just said in the first service, I'd watched this several times as a kid. Whenever the church would pay off a mortgage, they would burn it. And I got to thinking, why did they ever do this? So I want you to know, I don't know why we do this. But somebody said it must be fun to burn something in church. Now, I do want you to know we have a fire extinguisher handy, and we're going to do this with great care. We did not burn the church down in the first service. However, somebody spoke up when I said that, and they said, you still have one more chance. So I want everybody, while we do this, to be prayerful so we won't burn the church down. But we're going to dim the lights, but we just have some wonderful greetings and also a video that walks through the history of our church.
Darkness and bathe in your light. And I recount every blessing, the words you've spoken that bring me new life. I am reminded from where you have brought me, where you have placed me for today. I won't forget that your hand will hold me, your love sustains me through the way. to come, you to come, 'cause you are faithful.
Good morning, Springs of Life. Congratulations on paying off this tremendous building. I remember walking through when it was just a slab and metal purlins and thinking to myself, what a great debt that we would be assuming on this building. And you'd be commended on such great sacrifice to pay this off so quickly. That's tremendous. And I would also like to thank Lynn, Pastor Lynn, for his great leadership in this process. It's not easy as a pastor to keep all of this going and the administrative struggles that come with this. Good job, Pastor Lynn. Thank you. And congratulations to all. This is a tremendous accomplishment. Good job.
We just want to tell y'all how excited we are for you getting to retire your debt, and that the future that you have in your path can only be great and wonderful with God leading and guiding you in the direction that He desires for you to go. Our prayers are that you will continue to be this lighthouse in the community for Cedar Rapids, and that God will just continue to bless you.
Hello, Cedar Rapids. I am so excited after talking to Pastor Lynn about all that you've accomplished, and you've continued to grow and see people saved. That was such an exciting part of our time with you guys. We are just excited about you retiring your debt, and for your future, we know that it holds great things, and we are grateful for Pastor Lynn and his leadership that would take you on to new and higher places. Please know that we still love you, and the only thing right now that we're not happy about is that we're not there in the middle of all that snow. And that's a joke, yes.
Good morning, Springs of Life Foursquare Church. This is Pastor Barry Foster. My wife Mary had to be out of town, but we were both so thrilled to hear the news. You're paying off the mortgage of your building. That is an awesome accomplishment. It's evident God's been doing some wonderful things there with you, and we are so grateful. We're so thrilled for you and grateful to see what God is doing in your midst, doing among you. The Lord says, the one who's faithful in little be faithful in much. And you've been faithful in the little things that God has given you, to support your church, to give to the building fund, to reach out to the community, to welcome in new strangers, new people to the church, to disciple people and grow them up. What an awesome thing. We are grateful beyond words. And we're confident that God's going to continue to pour out His Spirit on you, and through your faithfulness, He's going to continue to reach people and bring them into the kingdom. We couldn't be happier for you. Pray God's blessing on you, His richest blessing, and that you would continue to grow up into the image of Christ, and that they grow in the knowledge of Jesus Christ and His grace, and be a light to the community there. To be someone who lives up to the name of your church, Springs of Life, that you can be the vessel for God to bring springs of life, living water to people around you. God bless you. We're so proud of you and so grateful for you. I'm glad for this chance to honor you and to celebrate God and what He's done in your midst. Let's have a wonderful service of celebration. We thank you for the privilege of being a part of it. God bless you and God love you.
Good morning, Springs of Life Church. Barry and I are so happy for you. We're so pleased every time I read about Springs of Life online. It just makes my heart happy. You have persevered through loss, through difficulty. You've hung on to Jesus. You've taken care of each other. And now you're seeing some of the fruit of all that faithfulness. And God will continue to be faithful to you. You continue to be faithful to Him. We love you a lot, and we rejoice with you today.
Hello, Springs of Life. It really is a privilege for me to join in with you today via this video. My name is Dan Munt, Heartland District Supervisor And I want to congratulate you on paying off your mortgage. Wow, what a great accomplishment. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your diligent giving. Pastor Lynn, thank you for your leadership on this, as well as the church council and church elders. Again, thank you and congratulations. We rejoice with you as the Heartland District and the Foursquare Church. God bless you. Look forward to great days ahead as you glorify Jesus. God bless.
I want anyone in the church right now that you were here with Springs of Life the days before the construction and during the construction, if you could just stand, a part of the original church. Amen. I want us all now to stand together, and I'm going to ask Carol Miner and Ron Burgess over there in the corner and Brent Dothert. I'm going to ask some of the original people that were used by God to step out in faith to do this. And Carol, I'm going to have you light it. But Carol, before you do, two things I want to say, and I want to remind us of this. We stand on the shoulders of many, many men and women of God who paid a great price so that we could be here. Every time I've watched that little slideshow of our 90-year history, this church was birthed in revival, and I believe that the torch has been passed to us to continue to carry that flame. That was our roots, and I know I talked to George Bell after the second service. Many of us don't know this, but after the tent meeting, they built a tabernacle. And George said, as a child, I played in the sawdust in the tabernacle while the revival meetings were going on. George's sister received a healing, had a broken arm, and was in the original crusade with Amy Semple McPherson. And she took her cast off and was totally healed. We need to understand the heritage, the legacy that we have inherited. And so today, we did not do this by ourselves. God has used people throughout decades to bring us to this point. And so we want to give thanks. The second thing, for those of you that get shocked by loud noises, I want you to know there's going to be some pops. But it's okay. All right. Carol, would you please light that on fire?
Light my fire, Carol.
Some debt what doesn't want to go. Can I help you? Somebody got a lighter? Nobody has a lighter in this church. I don't know how to use one of these.
There you go. Just dip a little. There you go. Look at there.
We gon' celebrate your party with you. Come on now. Celebrate good times. Come on. Let's celebrate.
All right, that was good. You may be seated. I have one question to ask you guys. You all being good Christian folk, how did you know when to do the yoo-hoo of that song? Somebody needs to get to the altar at the end of this service. All right. I want to ask everybody, did everybody receive one of these booklets, one per family? If you didn't receive one, could you hold up your hands? We want to make sure that everybody gets one this morning. And Mike, if you could tell those ushers out there that some of them are stewarding the bucket, if you could just ask the ushers, Could you raise your hands if you did not get one of the brochures? All right, anybody else that did not get one? Every year we produce one of these, and we just, once again, share some of the things that we've always shared about the spiritual theme. But I want you, if you would, to turn in this brochure to Sow Life by the Numbers. And this is just a continuation of thanksgiving to God. We always talk about our spiritual theme. We always review kind of our vision, mission, and values. But we shared with you that whenever we write down these numbers, it's not about the numbers, but it's what they represent. And Jonathan, could you turn either the monitors down or turn me down somewhat? It's very, very loud on the stage. Still very loud. The numbers represent people. They represent what God is doing in people's lives. And what we try to do is we try to confirm and really accurately represent any facts that we represent to the church. And so when we talk about that 33 people this last year came to know the Lord, it's because they stated it to us in a very clear and emphatic way, or they, on a card that they filled out, stated that they had come to the Lord. So we want to praise God that this last year, and I know that there are others, but we're only going to represent what we truly have been able to validate and confirm. But we want to thank God that 33 people this last year said that they have received Jesus as their Lord and their personal Savior. Amen. We had 5 people that we know of receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit, and I know that we baptized 4 people, 3 in the church, and then 1 out at Lake McBride. Yay for us. So enjoyed being with you there that day where you followed the Lord in water baptism. Over the last 3 years, we just always want you to see how God has continued to bless our church family with growth. Last year, in the last 6 months, we finally broke over, or last year, we broke over the 300-mile or 300-person mark. For me, it was like 300 miles. It's been a long week. But this year, in the last 6 months, we have averaged nearly 350 people that make Springs of Life their home church. We want to thank God for His continued provision for us. This last year, we received nearly $400,000. I believe that is a record of the amount of tithes and offerings that have come in. And I believe for the first time in our church history, in both all income, both tithes and offerings and income that came in, we broke over $500,000 in income. Can we just pause right there and thank God for His provision for us right now? God has been so faithful. Matter of fact, this last year we finished up to 2018 with $119,000 worth of debt that we still owed. And so we were getting close. We eliminated $119,000 this last year of debt. But this is really exciting to me. And you guys bless me so much by your generosity. We had over nearly $13,000 where we gave to the poor, those in need, those that came to us and had requests. In local outreach, we spent nearly $10,000 in our local community reaching out various places. We also support Foursquare Missions Press, and we also support Foursquare Missions International. We gave nearly $14,000 to missions around the world. And then we also, as a church, we tithe our tithe. And we gave $40,000, nearly $40,000, for church planting and Foursquare ministry throughout the world to extend the gospel. But besides that, we also, for global missions giving, and these were support missionaries and ministries, our own missions teams that we sent out. We sent out a team of young adults and teens to Honduras. There were 2 trips to Asia. That totaled over $26,000 for a total in our missions giving and extension giving beyond our own ministries and church needs, nearly $66,000 this year. And we want to say thank you for being a giving church to preach the gospel throughout the whole world. Come on, we need to praise the Lord for that. We want you to be able to go through this. I'm not going to take the time to go through it all, but we always spotlight some new ministry initiatives that are going to start, some things that are new in our strategy and approach to ministry, and remind you of some conferences. So those were the ones that we highlighted this year. In the middle of the booklet, you'll see the local ministries that we are supporting, and also our missionaries that are on the field. You're going to see a couple collages of our missions team and local missions outreaches, just some pictures that share what we've done in our community and around the world. And if everybody could go to the very back pages where it says the dilemma/decision, and this is going to be where we're going to spend the rest of our time today talking. We want to celebrate what God has done for us, but also we want to talk about where we're at right now. And Carmen, could you hand me that tea? It's right beside you on the chair. Is that mine or yours? Okay, thank you. We want to talk about where we're at right now, and we want to talk about our future together. I want to go to this slide where I want to review where we've been for the last 5 years. And I used this tool before our eldership and our council, not only to, again, see kind of how God has blessed our church and the growth that we've experienced, but it also helps us see how much we're growing to where we can track our growth. And we have, some years we've grown by 20%. We had 1 year where we were a little less than 10%. But on average, if you average it out, we're right around 10% growth over the last 5 years. And so in just 5 short years, how can we remember 5 years ago? Just like it was yesterday, and here we are. We took a nap. We closed our eyes, we woke up and had lunch, and boom, 5 years later. And so I can remember in 2015 when we were getting close to breaking the 200 barrier, and we were talking about the need to go to 2 services and contemplating some of those decisions as we looked to 2016 and 2017. But here we are 5 short years later, and our congregation, our family, is about 350 people. And so school districts have to do this. You have to project in some ways, if this is the record in the past, if they're going to expand on a school or build a new school, what they have to do is they have to say, where is our growth occurring and how do we accommodate that growth? So if the last 5 years flew by so quickly, in the next 5 years, what could God do with us if we continue to grow at the current rate that we're growing? And so I want you to look at the projected growth rates. If we just sustain that amount of growth of 10, in the end of this year, we would probably be running close to 400 people. But in 5 short years, in 2024, we would probably have over 500 people that call Springs of Life their church home. I appreciate a quarter of you that are excited to seeing those 200 people come. But for me, I go, Lord, I don't want to shut off your blessing. I don't want to limit the growth that you have for us. But God, we've got a problem, and that's called a space issue, a space problem, where our foot has outgrown the shoe that we're in. And over the last 2 years at our Vision Sunday, we have introduced to the church 2 concepts. And the first one we introduced was the idea of adding a sanctuary onto this building, and that required no deconstruction, no tearing of anything out. We were just going to put an auditorium onto it. We were going to use some of this space, I remember, to become an expanded lobby, but we were going to add an auditorium. And when we talked to the builders after we got that information, we were all shocked and stunned after we went down that road where we thought that it would be nearly maybe $1 million. We were shocked when we realized that it was going to be over $1.5 million. And so we went back to the drawing board saying, how can we reduce the cost? And so then we presented a concept to you last year of building on both ends of the building. And we limited the square footage to about 7,000 to 8,000, and we would not have to rebuild or reproduce the lobby. And so there was some things that we thought that we could do, smaller square footage, and repurpose and reuse the same space. And as we went down that road, I can remember us sitting across the table at a meeting with Premise Construction, who is the original builder to this building. And they said that it will cost you nearly $2 million to do that. And all of us just kind of sat there in stunned silence. And Bart Woods, who was the owner of Premise at that time, he goes, "Man, you're taking this much better than what I thought you were." And inside I was crying, but on the outside I was with a bunch of men. I didn't want to cry in front of them. But I just made a statement. I said, "Bart, in these moments you just have to lean into sovereignty. If we believe God is guiding us, He's also protecting us. And so we just got to, in these moments, rest in Him. We have to just lean into His grace, knowing that He is the one that can make a way." And there is some reasons why that building on both ends is more complex than just adding an extra building. We found out, we were thinking that just by adding on both ends, shrinking the square footage, that we would save money, but actually it increased some expenses. One, we have under 10,000 square feet here. When the building was built, the city didn't require us to sprinkle the building. As soon as we make it larger than 10,000, we have to bring it up to code, so we would have to sprinkle the entire building. We thought that we had the infrastructure run to the building to quickly be able to do that. Found out that not all of the infrastructure was there. So that is a major expense to be able to do that. We also found by elongating our building, how many of you know that you attend a building that looks like Noah's Ark? And if we would have done that, it would look more like Noah's Ark. But we found out as soon as we elongated the building that long, that fire hoses only reach so far, and they have to be able to get a truck with a hose to get around to the very center of your building. And the fire hoses would not reach that far. So the city said, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to create a fire truck lane. And even though I believe that our firemen could back up a fire truck, you cannot back up a fire truck. You have to have a tomahawk turnaround so they can turn the vehicle out and drive forward. So that was going to be an expense of about $100,000 just to have them have a dedicated fire lane, or a part of our parking lot that was a dedicated fire lane with a turnaround. And so with sprinkling and with the fire lanes, and then because of the topography of our land, there was retention walls for the new pieces of parking, because you can't build an auditorium larger unless your parking lot reflects the size of the people that you're trying to accommodate. So in all of these different concepts that we have tried to look at, where we've at, and these are estimates, they're not perfect line item estimates, but the cheapest expansion that we think that we could do here is about $1.6 to $1.8 million. So that led to this dilemma. Our original investment in this location, we already have about $1.65 million invested. If we invest another, and that's the lowest conservative amount, if we invest another 1.6, we'll have over $3.2 million invested here. And so we have to ask ourselves the question, if we would outgrow this after investing over $3 million, we cannot add on to it again. So this is kind of a one and done deal. If we invest here, because all of the parking will be built out, we cannot build any more because we have to use any available space for parking. We would be one and done. So then if we would continue to grow, even though we would do multiple services, we would not be able, I believe, to get that investment back out because it'd be over $3 million. So while we're going down this track, trying to solve this dilemma, God, how can we add but keep it into a size and a portion that it would not be too much of investment, that if we did have to relocate, we could get the investment out. We did have an opportunity come to us in September. And it just came to us when we were in the middle of the throes of all this, because we know that no decision is a decision, and we needed to make a decision because we need to accommodate what is happening here. And so there was an individual that approached Kenny Crooks at work, and they said, "We hear that your church may be expanding, and our church is going to be coming up for sale." And so Kenny said, "Really? Where is that?" And it wasn't on the market, and they were still making the decision. But in fact, that church did come on the market. And so I want to give you just a few of the details. It's Echo Hill Church, and they built the same time that we built here 10 years ago. And what they did was they joined two churches together. And what they were attempting to do is to make kind of one healthy congregation and to reinvent themselves as a new church and to try to grow in this new place. And so they built a 24,000 square foot church building, and they chose an 18-acre site. This site has a 3-stall car garage. They built a place for fellowship, picnic shelter, play area. You're going to see some pictures in a few minutes. It will be annexed into Cedar Rapids in the spring of 2020. I think what is interesting is the sanctuary size that we were going to attempt to build on this facility here was between about 350 and 375. If we packed it in, we were hoping that we could get up to about 400, but realistically, for comfortability, it was going to be about 350, 375. This sanctuary size is about 350. It also has a stainless steel kitchen, fellowship hall. It already has 2 sets of men and women's bathrooms. Now, I want to go to the next slide, if you will, Jenny. So when we began our discussion with them, we knew that there was levels of what we would feel comfortable affordability for us. And I want you to know my heart as a leader. I have been around churches that have incurred so much debt where all they do is worry about the next payment. And so when we approached conversations with them, there was a level of affordability that we felt that we could comfortably handle. as a church because we want to have money for ministry. We want to have money for missions. We want to be able to have money to where we can actually do the work of God, where the church does not exist just to maintain a building. Okay? And so they came back with their market analysis, and they had a market analysis of like $3.4 million. So we knew that in our conversations with them that we were miles apart from what they were going to ask and what we could afford. And so we made an offer based upon if this building was sold, and I didn't clarify that in the first service. Any of our conversations, any of our negotiations with Echo Hill, it is all contingent upon many considerations and contingencies. We are not going to go into any building or any other location unless we have the resources that would be derived from the sale of this building. So we're not going to be carrying utilities on this building and trying to go into something. We need the money and the investment from here to go over there. So we were thinking that if we approached them, we would take over $1 million from the sale of this building in there. So we would have a loan of about 1.5, 1.6. So they came back and they said, no, we would not accept an offer of $2.5 million, and then we would put $1 million down, so our mortgage would be about 1.5. And they said no. We felt, based upon talking to lenders, that they said you would be good for about 1.6. So we raised our conversation with them. We said we'll go $100,000 more. They said no. We said we will not go any further. They chose to list it. They listed it for $3.5 million. And we told them that what our offer was not, we didn't want it to be insulting to them. We were trying to stay within the realm of what we felt that we could safely afford. And so they have tried to market this building. They've had a number of people that have walked through it, looked at it. But 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, they came back and their stewardship chair called me and he said, Lynn, are you guys still interested? And I just told him, I said, Tom, I want you to know there is some slight interest still there. But to be honest with you, because when they told us no in September, we had to continue to plan for all contingencies, and we continue to try to gather information on what it would look like for our next. And I said, so the door is closing. And I said, I need you to be clear. I need to be clear with you that you coming back and asking if we're interested, it is not for an increased price. We gave you our best price, so you guys have to understand there will be no more negotiations on price. He told me he needed some more time. He got back to me about a week later, and he told us that they would accept the offer of $2.6 million. Yeah. Well, it does mean that if we would pursue that, there's going to be equity built into it. And so when we heard that, we talked to the council about that, and the council voted to pursue it and then to recommend it to our congregation. Now, the way our church polity works is that the council can make a vote and say, this is what we think that we should do, and they can recommend it. But then the real decider is the church membership. So in our conversations with them, it's all been conditional upon the membership voting to approve this. We also have to get district and Foursquare International's approval. So there are many hurdles that we have to go through for this to become a reality. But when you look at this, we realize that we can get into this facility for the same amount that we would if we would build onto it. Also, some of the things that we see would be benefits, and I'm going to go down to the benefits part on your paper, that we would have a larger facility, 24,000 square feet versus probably 17 to 19,000 square feet. We would have a larger facility at really the same cost as expansion, but we would avoid going through a year-long construction project. But we would also have a larger master site with room for further expansion. So if we would outgrow this church, they have designed the church where on both wings of it, you could add additional expansion. Now, there are some other things that I want you guys to know that we've tried to do our homework, that we want you to know that we've tried to fully vet this decision and this recommendation. It is being annexed into Cedar Rapids this spring, I do believe. And so they're going to be running the city sewer. It already has Cedar Rapids water, but they're going to be running the sewer down. And we have 3 years to hook up to the sewer. Doesn't have to be done immediately. But we would be hooking up to the sewer. We've estimated that the hookup would cost us $25,000 to $50,000 because we have to go from the church to C Avenue and lay the pipe there. We also know that if you've ever been out to Echo Hill, how many of you have ever been out to Echo Hill? Now, I joked that I know that some of you have already gone out and you've kicked around the tire, drove around there in the parking lot. Their parking lot is a mystery. You drive down these lanes, they have 2 parking pieces, but then they have an oval track. Some of the men have been extremely excited because they envision goat cart racing for the men's ministry. But it is kind of, an oval track around to go through the drive-through. And we also know that we're going to try to demystify that if we would pursue this opportunity, simplify it, but also we need to add a piece of parking to it. We've estimated the cost of that to be $135,000. The parking expansion areas are graded and the storm sewers are in. They said it's really just peel and pave. So they've done a lot of the site work, but the materials to put in that parking and the labor and expense of it, obviously. But we've estimated that at $135,000. So we're looking and believing God that we would get about $1.3 million from this facility. And it could be 1.2, 1.3, but if we did, we would have $1 million to put down, but then any extra we would save for these infrastructure costs where we're not including them in the loan, okay? That we would pay cash for those things. Now, here are the drawbacks that I see in our relocation. It means that we would be moving from the west side, which is where the history of the church has been for the last 10 years, to the north side. We would also be leaving what we've known as home. How many know that nobody wants to leave home? And then also we have the hurdle of selling our church property. There are some people that have expressed some interest. We don't know how deep that interest is, but there are some potential people that have expressed interest, and we're following up on those. Now, I want to just take you through a little mini tour, some pictures of what that church looks like if you have not gone out there. How many have already gone out there and looked? Okay. This means that this church leaks as much as the Trump White House does. And in the earlier service, I sang a little tune. I heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend that we're shopping around, okay? And so I had heard that. I talked to somebody this last week, and they walked into a meeting that I was in, and they said, are we looking at a church? Because it just happened that the workplace that they work hired somebody that's from this congregation. And so they started sharing where they go to church. And they said, well, I go to Springs of Life. And they go, oh, I think your church is looking at our church. And so when they came to my meeting, they said, are we looking at a church? And so it's amazing how the grapevine works. Okay, but this is Echo Hill Church. And it's, if you see those things that are prairie grass, wildflowers, kind of the back of the property, the farm field to the south and to the east would not be included, just where the wild prairie grass is. Again, that's the site. Go to the next one. Go back to that one. Guys, do you see the go-kart track? Okay, let's move on. That's another picture of the front of the building. This is in the lobby, so if you'll turn to these pages here, you come through an airlock, and then there's a large, wide hallway, and then you come into the lobby. So this is looking at the north end of the lobby, and there is a cafe space, and then they have 2 educational wings on each side. The double doors that you see there go into the fellowship hall. This is the sanctuary. This is the fellowship hall. And where you see the sliding doors that they recoil up and down, that's where the kitchen is located. This is inside the kitchen. And really, this church spared no expense. This is one of the classrooms, and every one of the classrooms has built-in cabinetry, and also there is water in all of them. Some of them have restrooms for the kids inside the classroom. This is a Bible study room, conference room. This is the back of the property. If you see the double doors on the back of the church, there is this large patio portico that they built for, grilling outside fellowship activities. It is very nice. They had community gardens, and what excites me is a dumpster surround. Okay, you can see the playground, and but if you see all this mowed area around it, there's a mile walking trail all around the perimeter of the property that they kept mowed. And then there's the garage. Now, I said it's 3-stall, but actually in one of the stalls they put a door instead of a garage door. They only used one side for their mowers. This church had a ministry where they produced handmade wood toys for children in the third world. And they did this ministry. So they had a pretty elaborate wood shop in half of the garage. Next. Picture of the playground and the shelter house. And I think that's the last one. So inside your brochure today, everybody should have this card. Hopefully it didn't fall out. What we have to do is we're going to have a membership congregational meeting on February 23rd. And I just ask that if you have questions that we have not been able to answer today, obviously, I want you to just be able to call, email, text those questions, and we'll try to build a reference form to answer some of those questions that some of you may have. But on February 23rd, Sunday at 4 o'clock, we're going to have a congregational membership meeting. And at that congregational membership, you'll either ratify that we move forward in this, or it will be declined. And we're just trusting that everybody make this a prayerful process. Our leadership is united. We want to make this as a recommendation to the congregation. But really, we believe that God's will is going to be expressed through His people that are yielded to do His will. and that do the due diligence of seeking His face about it. Also involved, yep. Yeah, and some of you may not be members. You are welcome to attend the meeting and to hear all the information. If you would like to talk to me about membership, where you go, Lynn, I haven't gone through the class yet, talk to us and we'll try to accommodate if you want to be a part of the vote of that as well. Now, on the back of this card, you'll notice that there are 3 tour dates. Because I've always wanted, if ministry didn't work out, I always wanted to be a tour host, okay? But there are 3 dates. Man, you guys are a tough audience today, all right? I even sang REO Speedwagon to you today. What more do you want? Just kidding. We chose 3 consecutive Fridays because Friday is the most unengaged day for our church. We have meetings, gatherings, Bible studies, prayer meetings every other day of the week, and so we chose Friday. On those Fridays, you have 2 opportunities, 10 a.m. or 6:30 p.m. And so we want you to please, before the congregational meeting, we want you to at least go through the church once. You can come all 3 times, because you'll see something the second time that you didn't see something the first time. The only thing I am asking the entire congregation, this church is going through a tremendous time of pain and trauma. When they set out on their journey 10 years ago, they didn't mean that it would end this way. And so when we go in there, I want us to be very honoring, very respectful. They may just tell us, feel free to go throughout the church. You're available to go. Or they may have a host or a hostess that will take us through. And so we just want you to be sensitive to them. Sometimes when you walk into a new facility, and I know some of the leaders, when they saw the kitchen for the first time, they thought they'd died and gone to heaven. I mean, there was more stainless steel than should be allowed in a kitchen. And so sometimes in our exuberance of what God may possibly have for us, we forget that they're walking through the death of a vision while we may be walking into the birth of a new aspect of vision for us. So be sensitive to them, but join us in one of these 3 times. So 10 in the morning, 6:30 at night. I'd like the worship team to come, and I want us all to stand.